Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Twins Talk Arsenal. Today we're going to talk about the Arsenal Benfica game and the player ratings. Before we do so, we've done a number of videos now, so if you like this, feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts of these videos, how you're finding them. If you have any questions or comments, we'll be happy to answer them accordingly. Moving on to the player ratings, if I start with Leno, I think it was a pretty solid performance from him overall. There was nothing that he could really do about either of Benfica's goals. I'd probably give him a 6. He had a decent game overall. We didn't have too much to do. There was nothing he could really do about the first goal. It was a good free kick from Benfica. And the second goal, it's a tough one. It was a bit of an error from Ceballos. Leno maybe rushed off his line when he could have been patient, but you can't fault him too much. I think it's hard for a goalie in that type of situation. It's one of those scenarios where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it was a bit unfortunate for him to concede 2. I don't think his performance itself necessarily merited that. But yeah, he had a good game overall.
Yeah, I think a lot of people criticize him for coming off his line and being in no man's land when they scored their second. But I agree. Like, if he gets to that, suddenly, he was quick off his line, he was decisive, he made the clearance, and he's the hero. But he wasn't put in the best position by our defense, which I guess we'll go on to cover. But I'm going to quickly talk about Kieran Tierney, who is known more for this game for his attacking display. That boy was immense. When he scored that second goal, you could see what that meant to him and what that meant to the club as well. He's showing those leadership qualities, which I feel like Arsenal have been missing for the last few years. I think he is definitely a captain of the future. I would give Tierney an 8 today, just for literally dragging Arsenal back into the game off his own merit. That was a finish that a striker would have been proud to pull off, and Tierney pulls it off right when we need it in probably the biggest game of Arsenal season. Tierney gets an 8 for me today, maybe an 8.5. Great to have him back in the squad, and hopefully he can continue to keep being the difference for Arsenal in the games going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's not really much to add to that, but yeah, I mean, it was a masterclass of a left-back performance from Kieran Tierney. He had a solid game defensively and massive contribution offensively. Can't be complimented enough for his performance today. Moving on to Bellerin. Again, I think it was an average performance. I'd probably rate him a 6 as well. He was involved in a fair bit of the build-up. He did have some good attacking moments. His link-up play with Saka was decent. He made a few good runs into the box. But we can see the difference between him and Tierney, in terms of hard work, determination, in terms of quality on the ball. When you see what Tierney offers on the left flank, maybe it's unfair to compare, but I don't know, it would be good to have that on the right as well. And I don't know if, Bellerin seems to be lacking a little bit. He hasn't seemed to regain that form which he had, in his early Arsenal career. He has had, a good few injuries since then, but I don't know, he hasn't quite rediscovered that form. And I don't know, he's not quite the player he is. There's links of him going to PSG and this and that. And I don't know if maybe that's unsettling him as well. But yeah, I mean, it was a decent enough performance, but it wasn't the best performance from him. So probably a 6 for today's performance.
Fair enough. I'll go on to talk about David Luiz. I think this was kind of a performance which sums up David Luiz, right? He was good in parts, stable defensively. When you're asking him to do routine defensive procedures, he's a good defender, and he can spray the ball about the pitch as well. His distribution is always very good. There were also points today where it looks like David Luiz got Arsenal into trouble, and he kind of made a few mistakes, was out of position a few times, got caught out by Benfica. I think this is really where Arsenal are making their mistakes, which are leading to the opposition scoring goals. Like Arteta's drilled the team very well defensively. We don't give away that many chances, but we have players that can give away mistakes, and David Luiz is one of them. I would give him a 5. No, I'd give him a 5 for today. It's these type of players who could do a job 80% of the time, but every now and again will get caught out, that are dragging Arsenal down the Premier League table this season. And I know David Luiz is really important to Arteta and he values him, and he's really important to the development of younger players, and that's great. I think he should be at Arsenal next season, but in a much reduced role and more of a coach behind the scenes to help come in when we need him to come in, but not taking a first team spot. I think that's the difference between Arsenal and a team like Man City right now, where Man City basically have 16 first 11 players that all deserve to play in the first team. And Arsenal are pretty much having to put out players who should kind of be on their way out. He was on his way out of Chelsea and now he's come into Arsenal's first team. So I give David Luiz a 5 for today. He's had better showings, but he's had worse showings as well.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree with that. Moving on to his defensive partner, Gabriel, I'd probably rate him a 5 as well. I don't think it was his best game today. It's a tough one. He did make quite a lot of sloppy passes. His positional play wasn't the best. I know for Benfica's second goal, obviously everyone looks at Dani Ceballos and, at the end of the day, it is his error. But, Dani Ceballos is a centre-back because the two centre-backs weren't there. So, I don't know. I think positionally it wasn't the best game from Gabriel. Don't get me wrong. Overall, him and Luiz did a good job, in controlling the Benfica attack. But then Benfica didn't really come to attack. So, there wasn't too much to do for them. I don't know. I think Gabriel's had better games. He's had more commanding performances. It wasn't quite his night tonight.
Fair. I'll go on to cover Xhaka. I think Xhaka was decent in the middle of the park today. I think he helped to control the game, and his passing was on point. I think it was a pretty standard display from Xhaka. I'll give Xhaka a 6, probably 6.5 for today's performance. I thought he was decent and solid in the middle of the park today. Maybe he was highlighted more by the failings of his partner, Dani Ceballos. One thing I will say about Xhaka is we all heard the comments that he made earlier this week about the abuse that he suffered, and his family has suffered the abuse directed towards his wife and the abuse directed towards his kids. And a lot of that coming from Arsenal fans. And it's been found that season ticket holders were given that abuse as well. I've got to say that any kind of criticism like that towards a player's family is completely out of line. That it's a game of football. And if you're going to criticize somebody, criticize his footballing ability and criticize him. There's no reason to bring his family into it at all. And I think he's shown that mental strength a lot while he's been at Arsenal at different points to kind of deal with that criticism and perform well. So well done for him for his performance today. And I just wanted to let him know that, our thoughts are with him.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that type of criticism definitely needs to be stamped out. There's no place for it in football. Like Granit Xhaka said, you're not a real fan if you're saying these types of comments. We're one big family at Arsenal. We should all be supportive of each other through the bad moments as well as the good moments. If football players do something wrong, of course, we should criticize what they do on the pitch. That's fair enough. We're all open to criticism in that manner, but, there is a line and that line shouldn't be overstepped. When there's personal comments and, comments made to, Granit Xhaka's wife and kids, it oversteps the boundaries, and there's no place for that. Moving back onto the player ratings, moving on to Dani Ceballos, I think it's a tough one. I think I have to rate him a 3 for the simple reason that he was at fault for both of Benfica's goals today. Benfica's first goal, don't get me wrong, it was a great free kick from them, but it was a needless free kick for Dani Ceballos to give away. Their forwards kind of running into no man's land. We've got cover defensively. It's not like Dani Ceballos was one-on-one or anything like that. Could have just let the guy run past him and there's still no danger. Then, the second goal that Benfica score, I think all Arsenal fans kind of have their head in their hands at that moment. You just wonder what he's doing. He's got good talent. He does show promise, but it's these type of errors which, definitely could have cost us today. And, if Arsenal had lost this game, wow. I mean, it's one of those performances where who can you blame except yourself? Benfica were not great by any stretch of the imagination, but what can you say? They would have deserved the win, because if they'd won, we've given them two goals which were easily preventable. So Danny does have to take a bit of criticism based on his footballing performance today. And it wasn't the best of games. I hope he recovers from it and plays well in the Premier League in the future, because he shows promising signs. But yeah, based on today's performance, it wasn't a good performance.
Yeah, I don't want to criticize him too much, but today wasn't great, and Arsenal could have paid dearly for it with our transfers next year, and our place in Europe. So I won't cover him anymore. I'll move on to, I'll cover Saka. I think for me, man of the match today. The thing about Saka is he can be out of the game for large periods and then produce that moment of magic, which absolutely rips another team apart. And the boy is 19 years old, and he's able to do this week after week. We're talking about every single game. Saka is man of the match or just below. Man of the match or just below. And I know Abba scored 2 goals today, but my God, did Saka make both of those goals for him. Put both of them on a plate for the big man. And Abba must be so thankful to have a player of such quality behind him. For both of those goals, it was Arsenal's 2 best players linking up. And you've got a 19-year-old absolutely making mincemeat of quality defenders and putting in ridiculous balls for Abba to get in on the end of. I give him an 8 today. He doesn't get a 9 just because, apart from those 2 chances that he made, he was kind of in and out of the game. But my God, what a talent that boy is. We are very lucky to have him. And if he was not at Arsenal, if he was at like a European club and teams were looking to buy him, say this summer or next summer, you're talking about like 60 million, 70 million pounds for that boy. And he's at Arsenal. So we need to make sure he's on a long-term contract. We need to make sure we continue to give him long-term contracts, because he's going to be worth a lot of money to Arsenal moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And, also you kind of saw his tactical flexibility, which he offers Arteta and Arsenal. We took off Bellerin for Lacazette later on in the game when we were chasing the game. Saka played at right back. It was one that he was a right winger when we had the ball and more of a right back when we didn't. And given the possession numbers, we tended to have the ball more often than not. But, it's still that tactical flexibility which he offers Arsenal in those types of situations. Probably could another Arsenal player have come on and done that? Probably not. So, it shows what Saka's all about. He's got 2 assists today. He did have a great game. He gave us the tactical flexibility when we needed it. It was a really solid performance from him. Moving on to Odegaard, I'll give him a 7. I think, don't get me wrong, he didn't score or assist in today's game, but a lot of the good Arsenal moves came through him. He does remind me of a Bergkamp type player, an Ozil type player, but without the ego. He looks to be someone that he's come in, he's settled down quickly, he wants to impress, which is, very important. He's kind of fit into the Arsenal family very quickly. And, just as when we were impressed with Emil Smith-Rowe and Saka, after the Chelsea game when we won at the Emirates, why were we impressed with them? We were impressed with them because of the drive, the determination, the willingness to succeed and, to try and do well and the best for the club. And Odegaard's come in and, he's kind of brought that philosophy as well, or he's brought into that philosophy. He's come in, he's trying to make stuff happen. I think overall he had a very good game for Arsenal. He does the job defensively as well. So he's not one, he's not like Ozil where he's walking around the pitch, maybe a bit lazy defensively. He does his bit for the team and then he, tries to contribute offensively. I think given that we've only got him, we only got him in January. So, he hasn't been at the club long at all. We're getting to what? He's been at the club a month, roughly. He's settled in really well. Yeah, I mean, I hope, obviously it's only early days, but I do hope that he can firstly carry on these performances for the rest of the season. And then after that, if it's still promising come the end of the season, I do hope we can get a permanent deal done for him. He's a young player and he's got a lot to offer.
I'll cover Emile Smith-Rowe, the kind of flip side of that coin, right? I think Emile, I'll give a 6 today. I think he was good. He linked up play like usual, but being played out of position in order to accommodate Odegaard, I think is having a bit of a detrimental impact on Emile's performance. And this is something that Arteta has got to be kind of careful with, right? Because I know Odegaard is a great player, but Emile is a great player as well. And Odegaard isn't tied down. We don't even have an option to buy for the next, for after the next 6 months, right? And it's already been a month. So we've got 5 months left of that deal. And if we're going to hamper Emile Smith-Rowe's performance for Odegaard, who we then don't sign, that's a difficult thing going forward. But then equally, we still need to win games. And if Arteta thinks that we're going to have a better chance at Odegaard in the middle, then that's where he should play him. I give Emile a 6 today. I think he struggled to really leave his mark on the game. I'm hoping that in the next few games, Arteta can start playing him in the number 10 role again, now that he's been sort of rested a little bit from having to be the centre of Arsenal's attack. But yeah, I'm hopeful that he will get a few more opportunities in the middle, because I don't want to see him stunt his development for the next 6 months and then suddenly we don't have a creative player that's in form.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's someone that everyone was raving about, after the post-Christmas period, after the Chelsea game, the Brighton game, the West Brom game, etc. Emile Smith-Rowe was always one where, if you were to list your top 2, top 3 man of the matches for Arsenal, Emile Smith-Rowe was always there or thereabouts. He was performing to a very high level. It has fallen off a little bit since Odegaard's joined the club and since he's been played in the number 10 position and Emile Smith-Rowe's been kind of shifted out wide. But then he still offers a lot by being shifted out wide, but it is reduced a little bit. And yeah, it is something that Arteta needs to think about quite carefully, because like you said, Emile Smith-Rowe at the end of the day is an Arsenal player. Odegaard, there's no guarantee that he'll be an Arsenal player come next season. If you have to prioritise one, really you should prioritise, the Arsenal player that we've got tied down to a long-term contract. Moving on to Aubameyang, I think I'll rate Aubameyang an 8. At the end of the day, he stepped up again when Arsenal needed him the most. If we compare it to at this stage last season, he didn't step up against Olympiacos. He had that amazing chance right at the end against Olympiacos, but didn't score it. And, if he did, that would have been us through to the next round rather than Olympiacos, but it wasn't meant to be. But, this season could have been a similar scenario if he'd missed that late chance, but he put it in the back of the net. Ultimately, he's got 2 goals today. You can't complain with that. He's done what he needed to do. When we signed him to that long-term contract, it was with the mindset of him scoring goals at these vital moments. And yeah, he stood up and he scored the goals today when Arsenal needed him most.
I think Abba's coming for a lot of criticism, and we've kind of spoken about this before, where Abba is a finisher. That's basically what he brings to any team, right? He's not going to put in great crosses from the side of the pitch. Like, he's not going to really link up play. He's not going to do much else, but that boy can finish, and he is going to finish time and time again. And both these goals are going to look easy, right, to a fan that watches it. Like, oh, they were put on a plate for him. But it takes a player to know what position to be in and to get into that position to score those goals. And that's the reason why Abba continually gets 20 plus goals every single season, no matter what team he's playing for. I think people have been a bit harsh with him this season. I know he's been a bit up and down, but he's still got bags of quality and bags of class behind him. I'm happy he got 2 goals today to kind of like silence critics a little bit. I'll go on to cover Arteta because I think the subs are kind of hard to talk about. I think Arteta, I think I rate him a 6 today. Again, I think we played well. I think just like many other games in Arsenal's season, we were hampered by mistakes, which Arteta couldn't really do much about. I think a innocuous decision, which Arteta had, suddenly became very important. He chose not to play Thomas Partey at the beginning, which I'm sure he thought was making the safe decision, right? To not rush Partey back, to kind of protect him, to bring him back over the long term. And suddenly Ceballos, who plays instead of Partey, makes 2 mistakes. And suddenly you're looking at that decision as a potential reason why Arsenal don't have European football next year. So I think if we had lost the game, Arteta would be coming in for a lot of criticism, maybe unjust criticism, but a lot. So I'm glad that we won. I'm glad that he doesn't have to bear through that kind of criticism from Arsenal's fan base. I'd say a 6 today. We could have been a bit more. We could have created a bit more offensively going forward, and that's something which Arteta needs to look at. But I think he chose the right team, and I think if we hadn't made those 2 mistakes, he has also drilled our team very well as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can tell that he's, kind of imprinting his mark on the team. But it's not his fault. But we're making far too many individual errors, which are costing us games or are making games a lot tighter than they should be. When you look at Benfica, they scored 3 goals over the 2 legs. One of them soft penalty in the first leg, and then the second leg, a needless free kick, and then for their second goal in the second leg, it's a lack of concentration is probably the kindest way to put it from Dani Ceballos. Gifting them the second goal in the second leg. It's not really much Arteta can do. I think he's drilling the team well, but yeah, there are far too many individual mistakes which are either costing us or are making the games a lot tighter than they should be. So I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily his fault, but at the same time, he's the coach, and this is an issue that needs to be addressed. Whether it's changing personnel, whether it's finding ways to keep the current personnel's concentration levels, 100% kind of thing for the full 90 minutes. Whatever it may be, I do think it needs to be addressed because we're seeing it time and time again. We see the best of Arsenal, how well Arsenal can play, but we also see the worst of Arsenal. And, we make games tight when we've completely dominated them, and that just shouldn't be happening. We should be winning the game 4-0 by that stage, as an example, and we should also be keeping clean sheets.
Yeah, agreed. You can continually point at these mistakes which are happening and say Arsenal were getting unlucky. If we didn't have these mistakes, then we'd be dominating games. But there's a reason that these mistakes crop up every single game. At the moment, it seems like we're giving away stupid goals or we're making stupid mistakes on a match-by-match basis. I think it's because of the personnel which Arteta is having to deal with. Not that they're bad players, but they just have mistakes in them. And, if you put Arteta in front of a squad that has the value of City, I think he would kind of be able to easily wipe that away. But he's got to make do with what he has. And what he has right now is players that do have mistakes in them. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of signings Arsenal make over the summer and how Arteta steers the ship over the next few games, because we have a few hard teams coming up. And we need to make sure we don't lose to those teams, never mind if we lose to ourselves. So hopefully we can steady the ship and get a few wins on the bounce.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we've got some very tough games coming up. We've got we've got Leicester on Sunday, and then in the pipeline, we've got Burnley, Tottenham, Liverpool coming up, West Ham as well. So, definitely, must win games. These are all teams that are above us in the table. if we're not going to get top 4, but if you want to even think about top 4, you've got to beat the teams above you. And, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we'll get top 4 by any stretch of the imagination, but we've still got to try and win these games to build that platform, build that performance, show what we're about, show what we're capable of. And, if we do that, if we come out of this difficult run with good results, you never know what's going to happen, whether that be in the top 4 or even simply gives us a good platform to carry on performing in the Europa League.
Yeah, we're talking about top 4. We need to make sure we even get Europa League next season. So we still need to perform very well in the Premier League. Hopefully we do. Hopefully we manage to get a win against Leicester on the weekend. But until then, we had a good performance tonight, and we progressed on to the next round of the Europa League.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for watching, guys. If you liked what you saw, then obviously feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, we'll be happy to cover the Leicester game, and we'll take it from there.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.